Anthony. So when we talked to you last week about Chubb, you had only seen just 8 live reps. Have you seen enough to this point to think that he's ready to play in an NFL game? And also, what's realistic to expect from a guy who hasn't played since New Year's Eve?
Yeah, that's difficult. And truthfully, I don't really know that answer in terms of what to expect from him. The one thing I do know is he's put in the work. When he's out there on the field, he certainly doesn't look out of place. For him, it's just a matter of confidence, and when the doctors and all the medical people say he's ready, he'll be out there on the field.
And what about Cameron Good? I know most people forget that he's actually coming back too. What has Cameron shown you, and what could he bring to this defense? I know you've had some injuries on the edge position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Cam falls into that same category there, where when he's out there, he looks the part. I think the thing that's most incredible about those guys is if you're just talking about just pure schematics and them and their knowledge of the defense and going out there and executing, you can tell that they've been locked in. They're not going out there and giving a bunch of busts and medals because they're hearing new terminology. Like, these guys have been locked in from the start. So it's truly a credit to their professionalism and their work ethic. And when they do hit the field, I know that they're going to contribute and be ready to go.
Are you hopeful that Tyus Bowser comes back and is able to finish out the season?
Yeah, if I'm betting on the kid, yes. Ultimately that's between the medical people and God. But I know Tyus and just who he is as a man, and he's going to do everything possible to get out there.
Zach Sealer really added the interior pass rush last season, and then it just expanded on it this year. 2 sacks last game. What are some of the things that he does that makes him a good pass rusher inside?
Wow. First off, I think it's a testament to just how hard he works at everything, on his body, on his craft, on his knowledge of the game. He is the ultimate professional. And if I'm a younger defensive player, I'm looking at him, Calais Campbell, and trying to mimic as much as what they do to try to make sure I maximize my God-given ability. But I love him to death. He is a coach's dream, and all of the rewards he's reaped so far, he's worked for.
What makes him a coach's dream?
Just that you know exactly what you're going to get every single day. He's consistent, he's disciplined, he's tough, he's physical, and obviously he's productive.
We've got a technique question on Jalen Ramsey when he fell down, slipped with the complete. He's lined up off of Garrett Wilson, which he's done before, but his back is almost pointed at the sideline. And then it looked to me like Garrett gives him an inside move, and Ramsey lost his footing. What was he trying to accomplish? I don't think he went back to that all game.
Yeah, it was one of the few times he played off coverage. There was a instance earlier in the game when Garrett got behind him. We were impressed. He was like in clue 1/3, and I think he had that on his mind. So he tried to play it from off, got hit on a double move, got kind of stuck in the ground on the transition and fell. Unfortunate play. Didn't look the best, but the thing you love about Jalen is he responded, right? There was a play he almost made and almost picked it on the same sideline, which would have been unbelievable. Made a critical tackle on like a second down, which got him a third down. We were able to get off the field. So even though the day probably wasn't going like as well as he liked early, true testament to the competitor he is. He responded when we needed him the most.
The pass interference, was that a catchable pass?
Absolutely not. But there you go.
And there was another. There was another play. 32 catches the pass and going toward the sideline, and it looked like he used Ogba as a pick, as a screen. Right, Ogba is back in coverage. This was.
I'm trying to remember.
He caught the pass, but I'll find the play and ask a better question next time.
I'll be better prepared. Sorry. Oh no, yeah, I know the random 32 play. We're all gotcha.
I know prior to last week, there had been, and I know also this is also a function of how the game is going and packages used, but there had been a drop in percentage of snaps that Calais was playing defensively. From 3 games in October, it was 76%, and it dropped a lot last month until last Sunday. Where are you, Calais, and Austin right now in terms of whether you think he can play as much as he did early in the season per game, if needed, if he needs to rest more? Does it depend on climate?
Yeah, I don't think that drop off was anything discussed more than we were probably a little bit more cognizant of it. The Thursday game in particular was just a short turnaround, and that probably contributed to some of that. But Calais is going to be out there as much as is necessary to get the dub. right? And he knows that, we know that, and he's one of those guys where if you try to take him off, particularly in critical situations, he ain't coming off.
Last week, Jordan made some headlines with his comments after the Green Bay game, and then he came out on Sunday and I thought played very spirited, like a guy that had felt like he had something to prove there.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that week was like for Jordan in terms of the preparation, the way that he kind of communicated with his teammates, and what you saw him carry out on Sunday.
Yeah, I love Jordan Brooks, and I think he's really been consistent for us the entire season. Right now, he's starting to play with a little bit of chip, and I think when you talk about December football and what that means, everybody should, right? We've essentially been playing playoff football since we went to LA. So our backs have been against the wall, and he's responded accordingly. And he's making sure he's bringing as many teammates along with him as he can.
Jalen, what did he think of the way the Jets targeted him? And, you know, after a game like that, I mean, he doesn't seem like a guy that needs, like, reassurance or anything like that. So what were conversations like about how things went?
The conversations were short, right? He certainly, when you have the skill set he has, and we give him a lot of heavy lifting, occasionally the other team's going to make a play. When you've had the success he had, you have to have a short memory and never lose confidence in that ability. And that certainly won't happen with him. We'll continue to give him those heavy liftings, and just like he did, the majority of the second half of that game, he'll respond and go out there and play like we expect him to.
There were 2 completions to Adams in the second quarter where he was completely alone. One was at the numbers, the other one was a 3rd and 2 where he ran it out and there was nobody within 5 yards.
Oh,
So
yeah,
to assume
yeah.
there was just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
miscommunication.
That's how you do.
Yeah. No, the 3rd down in the low red, to the right of us, we were in a pressure. All right, so that was a straight banjo beater. We were inside out on them, and then he actually checked the protection when he saw the pressure. Now, my misstep is that we had them. There was a penalty. I had made that call. They went back 5 yards. I changed the call. Then there was like another penalty, and then we were right back where he started, and I probably should have changed it. And I showed him the same look, and the Joker's 41 years old. He saw it, called in the protection. They had to be there. Like, hats off to them. Then the one you're talking about, the touchdown they scored.
No, it was a 34-yard gain. He went right up the slot and nobody picked him up.
I don't remember that one. I don't remember exactly which one that was. But if he was,
I'll be like Ferg, I'll
yeah. I'm sorry, man. I'm knee deep into the red zone on these guys right now. So
To get into the Texans, C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, and Nico Collins, your thoughts on each of these?
yeah, and Tank Dell and Laramie Tunsil. I mean, they got a squad, right? They have a bunch of guys, and the good thing, particularly a year ago, I played them twice when I was in Baltimore, so I have some familiarity with what they're trying to do schematically and how they're using them. But they have all the talent in the world, right? Nico's big, strong, fast, great hands. Joe Mixon, unfortunately, had to play against him the last 3 years, 2 in AFC North, and a back that I don't think really gets enough credit throughout the league. Can run with physicality, is great out the backfield. He tries to punish DBs on the second level, which I respect from a back. So, and then the quarterback has all the talent in the world, right? He has a cannon for an arm, can make every throw, has a tremendous amount of talent, a sneaky good athlete, right? Like, that's not what you think of when you think of C.J. Stroud, but he can create problems with his feet too. So, as a defense, we know we got to play our best game to date. It's December football. Like I told you, the playoffs started for us a long time ago. So we were fortunate to get out of Sunday with a win. We're not playing our best. We know to go on the road. If you want to win on the road, you better pack a good defense and you get on that plane.
So what do you have to communicate to your DBs, trying to take down Joe Mixon, a guy who is known to try to attack?
Yeah. Put your big boy pads on. Maybe get an extra chin strap or something like that. But our guys have seen it on tape already. We'll lower the strike zone a little bit and make sure we get population of the ball.
We have anything extra special about going back to Houston where you finished your playing career, where you for like 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's always special to go back to a place where you've played and coached. And shoot, I had my second child there, met my wife there. There'll be a lot of family cheering. So hopefully they don't get heckled too much in the stands when they're wearing that aqua. But no, it's always meaningful to go back. You'll see a lot of familiar faces, right? I played with D'Amico Ryan for 3 years. The ownership there, it was tremendously good to me. So there'll be a lot of smiles pregame and hopefully a lot of smiles for me postgame too.
So you all are giving up 4.3 yards per carry, which is still good. It's 10th, tied for 10th in the league.
That was like a backhanded
But,
compliment.
you know,
Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying?
it's not been as great these last few weeks. I wouldn't obviously expect you to single out any names, but you're always straight with us. Must the run blocking improve primarily in the interior, at linebacker, with your edge, with your inside guys, with your defensive backs? Where is the performance in run defending? Not blocking, obviously. Run defending not up to your standards.
Yeah, right now, particularly when we've been giving up some of our bigger runs, a lot of that has been on the perimeter in like jet sweeps and things of that nature, where ultimately you're relying on those second level edges to show up, whether it's a crack replace corner or safety or something of that nature. And then particularly down in the like low red area, some of those things that are kind of sifting through the middle has really been because of the interior of our defense. So, and it's really, some of our backup interior nose tackles need to play better in those situations.
I know it's a copycat league. How much going forward do you expect teams to emulate maybe what the Jets did and their key to getting 200-yard receivers, maybe what other tight ends have done, Trey McBride? Is that stuff transferable, or do teams have to do what they do best?
Yeah, I think there's always a copycat aspect to the league. If people want to go sign 41-year-old quarterbacks, I'm okay with that. Or target Jalen Ramsey, I'm also okay with that. So the majority of it, I don't think is transferable. I went up to Aaron after the game and told him I enjoyed playing against him much more than I enjoyed coaching against him. So you got to give him credit. He found his guys. I think we can do a better job of kind of hiding some of our coverages, pre-snap, and not giving them the answers to the test. And that'll be our challenge again this week.
We've seen Benito and Deshaun kind of, I suppose, come on the last month or so plus. How has their production helped you get more from guys like Sealer and Campbell, not just in giving them a breather, but allowing them to kind of play wider at more end positions?
Those guys have been critically important for our run defense improvements. Some of the success you see from our backers, Jordan Brooks, I think you can attribute to the way they've played too. The work they do, a lot of times it goes unnoticed. It's kind of unheralded, but it's so important, and we make sure we make that a point of emphasis during the week, and so the guys also notice what they're doing. When those two guys on the interior can hang four, whether it's a guard, tackle, and center, if they can take four and kind of let those smaller backers behind them run free, that is huge, particularly when you want to play some split safety shell defense.
So short yardage continue.
really?
Yes, it remains vexing for all of us. And now 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 11 for 22 on running attempts this year.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you, Mike, Butch, Eric, talk about it, and do you feel some compunction to come up with something new or different in those spots?
I think it just comes down to what's the issue, and is it correctable, or is it that we have to pivot and scheme? Most of our issues are just making sure that we're executing at the moment when we have to be on it, and making sure that we're preparing them appropriately with the looks that we think we're going to get. Sometimes we've gotten things that were down the line, looks that were kind of not what we thought, but I think ultimately it's just we know what we need to do to be better. We feel very good about the opportunity this week to improve on the situation.
Frank, when you talk about looks, there was if I'm not mistaken, there was a play where Achane had a chance to score, but he tripped over Malik Washington's legs. And there was a play against Seattle where Achane looked like he had a hold and he slipped. How often do you go back to those plays? Is that dictated on what look the defense gives you, or are you saying, we had this, we're going to line up and run it again no matter what the defense shows us?
Yeah, we normally go back and, make sure that we're evaluating, you're looking at all of our encompassing plays from the season, making sure that you're not doing something because it looks like it's good, you just don't execute it very well. And we always take into our self-scout of what we're trying to do to make sure we're putting the guys in the best spot and, giving guys the ops to be able to execute.
Speaking of Malik, he seems to be a very tough kid to me. He's taking some big hits, and on goal line, he's down there blocking. What can you tell me about Malik's toughness?
It was one thing that stuck out on his college tape. I mean, he had a catch, I think it was versus the University of Tennessee, where he had to go up on the sideline to get it, and when he came down, he got hit by two guys and didn't go down and got up, or didn't go down and was able to gain even more yards. So I think that wasn't a surprise to us because that was part of his evaluation in college. You could clearly see toughness in all phases of his game.
With Patrick Paul, obviously he's prepared like a starter for the last month. This is different than when he got that opportunity in Tennessee. What growth have you seen from his game during that stretch, and what more do you want to see from him to sort of get to that next level?
I think the big thing for him is, you take the difference from college to the NFL, and then the level of talent you're facing week in, week out, and then you realize like what it's going to take to get there with your fundamentals and making sure that everything's on point all the time. I think he really invested more each week as he learned things that were necessary. His sense of urgency improved, and that's where he's at right now. So he's done a great job. I know Butch and the guys have really been doing extra in all phases just because he has that drive, and you're seeing things starting to connect, things to really understand how he needs to play to be a successful player in this league.
I also want to follow up on Teron. You coached him for a while. You were there at the beginning of his career. It was kind of a sad moment for me to watch him on the sidelines during that game. I'm sure you were focused on other things.
No, I always notice him.
Yeah. What is it like seeing him struggle to not be able to contribute to his team?
Well, I think that he isn't able to contribute maybe there physically, but he contributes in other phases because he is a natural leader. His experience and his wealth of knowledge towards things is very helpful to the guys. So, he's working through his process, and there's not a player that I don't trust more than him.
Texans have the second most sacks in the league. What makes that pass rush so deadly, and what will it take to limit them?
I think it's their understanding of how they want to play, how they're connected throughout their whole defense. Good players in a good scheme, and they play very hard. I think ultimately for us it's being connected together, all phases of the offense, because when you have a team that rushes the passer really well, or even teams in general, I think that our sole focus is to always make sure that we understand launch points, timing, distribution, and getting connected. And I think that when you play a team like this, those can be very important factors.
Frank, have there been conversations about maybe using Jeff Wilson in short yardage situations, considering he is your biggest, maybe most physical back?
Yeah, we always have the evaluation of where the guys go, but I mean, last year Devon was running in short yardage, and I mean, Kansas City, we had a critical short yardage where we needed to, and it wasn't clean, and he was able to punch through and get us, I guess you'd say an ugly three, a bloody three, it wasn't, he was able to do it. So yeah, we're always making sure that we're trying to make sure we get the right guys at the right spot and balancing the load amongst our position groups.
How have you seen Isaiah Wynn make progress since he has returned to practice and had a few weeks now?
Yeah. I think he's such a diligent guy. I mean, he's awesome just to have in group settings because he's one of the most locked in guys in the meeting. So, yeah, we're just working through his process to return, and there's not a guy who's going to work harder to make sure he's ready to go.
Throughout the game, during the overtime and that game tying drive in the fourth quarter, we saw lots of shots of Tua kind of amping the guys up, and he looked to me like a very confident player in that moment. I'm curious what you can say about Tua's confidence at this stage of his career.
I think he has a very good understanding of what we're trying to do, the guys around him, and just he loves those moments. So I think you're seeing the true nature of him come out, and I think it's also the confidence of what we've been able to do lately in the passing game too. I mean, it's been a lot of fun to watch him work, and a lot of the results on Sunday come from the hard work throughout the week and in the meeting rooms. So it's not surprising because he's the same way in practice.
Frank, a question about something I saw during the game, a 12-yard completion to Tyreek on the right side. Before the play, he's in the right slot. He runs over to about center, and he goes back, and Tua's pointing to him, pointing to an area. Is that the play design, or is that Tua noticing something with the defense in the moment?
It was communication of two prongs of things. Just when you're having movements, just making sure that for the timing of it, and just defense recognition stuff. But ultimately, the reason why you move and you do motions and stuff like that is to create angles and leverages on defense. So our ability to do that helps a lot of the times, and it also adds a layer that multiple people have to be connected so we can execute.
With one more thing, just to follow up on Alan's question about Jeff Wilson. With Devon, obviously strong lower body, but do you and Mike and Eric still believe that he is your best back for short yardage, even though he's diminutive?
That's a diminutive.
He's not an enormous guy who's physically imposing. He's skilled, but he's not a physically imposing back.
I don't know. Barry, today I feel like I need an extra level of English courses going on. Vexed, diminutive. I'm like, I gotta call my. I know. I'm like, I gotta get my my stuff going on right now, and I gotta call my sister. She's an English major. No, I think it's the. I know. I'm like, you gotta. Dumb it down for me, Barry. Give me a two.
The best short yardage option in you guys' minds.
I think it's your ability to, as a running back, there's feel, there's timing, and there's space, and your ability to see that and take space, I think is the most important thing. Ultimately, with the run game right now, that's an area that we want to improve on, and everyone's aware, and the guys are really focused on making sure that we're operating and we can do things well. And I think that it's easy to say one person, one group, one thing, as opposed to when running the football is a collective thing. Same as the passing game. So earlier in the season, we were running well. Okay, we're throwing it well, and we just got to get the run game back in efficiency where it needs to be. And it's going to be a collective group effort to get it done.
Frank, if I could ask one last thing before you go.
Yeah, that first step.
I was just keep the words down for me, Hal. Yeah.
This is off of what Travis was asking you about too, and clutch situations and all, and you mentioned how he loves those moments. If you could turn it inside out a little bit, to me it seems like a big part of it is how the players around a quarterback respond in those kind of clutch moments late in a game when it's time to rally. What have you seen from the players around Tua in their faith in him over these past few years, and when it really started to crystallize?
I think there was a lot of adversity in this season early on, and a lot of things that we had to push through, and things guys really learned about themselves, about each other, and what's important. And when now in the back half of the season, we're having opportunities to capitalize on and make those experiences meaningful. So I think that's when you go through a football season and you go through life, it's like, how do you define certain things, adverse moments that define, is it going to define you, or are you going to define it? I think that's ultimately what this season for a lot of guys has been, is we've learned a lot, haven't gotten some of the results that we were looking for early on, right? But we've gotten stronger together, and we're looking forward to every opportunity to continue that growth and make everything count.
So it's funny, Danny, the whole tone of the Malik questions obviously have changed from a week ago to the fumble to what he did on Sunday. When you look at the upside of him as a returner, we saw a little of physicality with the punter last week. We know about speed. What skills stand out to you that make you think this guy can be, a long-term productive NFL returner?
And it's the same things we talked about last week when we, from a negative to what we liked about him. He's a talented player. He's physical, smart. The biggest thing is the experience, and those things are going to just keep coming. And in our opinion, he's just going to keep getting better and better. But he's got good understanding of catching the football, reads the ball well in the air. It's all the stuff that we see on a weekly basis in practice, but it's like anything else. It's what happens on game day, and those are the things that you're going to be remembered, and those are the things that get amplified. So he's a good young player who's, again, just got to keep gaining more and more experience, because he wasn't the return guy in college, but he's really growing, and we're really happy we have him.
And then on the speed issue, of course, the speed is good. It's not, track star. How important is speed with kickoff returners in terms of projecting how good they can be compared to punt returners, and where does he stand in that area?
Well, I think the biggest difference between a punt returner and kick returner is that short area elusiveness on punt returns. I mean, you have to have that just because of the confined spaces. You're always going to have more space to get started as the kickoff returner, where you're not going to have that, obviously, in the punt return game. But we feel he has the attributes to do both. But we've all seen very successful kick returners that have blazing speed, and we've also seen very successful kick returners that maybe don't have the great speed, but they play and they win maybe more with power or running through blocks or being able to make the guy miss. So there's a lot of different guys around the league that have had very good success, and and again, we have a variance of guys on this team that have had success in their careers that are all built a little bit different.
Talk to him. He comes off very mature for a young player.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you see in that, especially in how he bounced back from that mistake to then have the?
Well, very mature. He's been that way since he's got here. Number one, he's a worker. He does his due diligence. He doesn't take anything for granted. But the earlier you can learn in this league that it literally it's a week to week proposition in the National Football League. Whether it's an individual performance, whether it's team performance, it all goes together. You win a big game, and this is the picture that's painted. You lose a game, this is the picture that's painted. To be able to stay even keeled and learn from whether it's the good or the bad. There's things you can learn. A good play is not always a perfect play. There's things that go wrong don't lose sight of all the little things throughout each and every play. And if you can do that and continue to grow and get better as the season progresses, that's where you are going to be either get better as a player, or more importantly, get better as a team.
Danny, Jason Sanders, no matter what kind of season, what kind of game he has, when the game's on the line, the dude is like money. Is it something about his emotional makeup to where he can just completely chill at that moment? But what to attribute it to? Even in cases where there have been games where he's kicked poorly, and then the game's on the line and boom, it's right down the middle.
Well, I think the best attribute about Jason is he is almost immediately on to the next kick. He doesn't carry anything positive or negatively. Everything to him is play, done, forgotten, move on to the next. And when I say forgotten, it's not completely forgotten. It's okay, what do I need to take from that on a positive? What do I need to change from that? Might have been negative, but everything's about the next kick. If he misses a kick, he's not thinking about that. Just like if he makes a kick, he's not thinking about that on the next kick either. He's a great ability to live in the present.
Danny, take us inside the meeting room, if you will, when you're watching the tape of Washington's return, especially the moment that he makes contact with the kicker.
The meeting room was a little bit, who was more surprised, Malik or the kicker? He gave the two a hard inside look, no eye contact before he cut back, and the kicker never really went anywhere. So he didn't buy the fake, so I need to work on our fakes more, because the guy didn't react at all to the fake, and when he came back, the guy was standing in the exact same spot, and then you ended up with the contact. But, he made a good play, and, that's part of it. Once that happens, he didn't panic. It was, okay, what is my counter to what just happened? I know what I'm trying to do. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, what is my answer to that?
And then what about the move he makes once he gets the ball, right? He cuts inside and then he goes to outside. He gets inside. Just great.
Again, talented players in this league, and guys that can do special things where, understanding where, we're strong and understanding where we may be weak on every call. I mean, you don't have great matchups on every player. You don't have a great scheme for everything because there's so many things you can't control. But to understand all those things and try and put yourself in a position to make a play, again, assigned to a mature player, a guy that's studying, who's in working, spending extra time with coaches and, veteran players. You see him talking to Braxton a lot. So trying to just hone in and be very good at his craft.
Yeah, I was going to add on that move, was that the spur of the moment athleticism, or was that scouting, knowing that this guy tends to kind of?
Well, it's a combination of both. How they play a little bit, and then also based on ball location, what availability do you have, what vulnerabilities do you have, and then as you said, in the spur of the moment, being able to execute. And we talk about it all the time. We talk about it in the meeting room. It's easy for all of us, players, media, coaches, as we sit in a nice air-conditioned room and watch the tape and have our Gatorade or our water and say this is great, to be able to execute and do those things when you're battling or dealing with another human being, obviously 22 of them on a field, and then be able to execute. That's what makes these guys so special.
The defensive play right before that was so big. Kendall Fuller getting Devontae Adams out of bounds, so big and saving 40 seconds there. Does that affect the decision to maybe bring a kick out?
It affects a lot of things. It affects how or what they're trying to do kicking the ball. In my opinion, it affects what we're going to try and do in terms of what are we going to return, how are we going to return it, what are we going to not do. So yeah, those time and timeouts, big. Quarterbacks, kickers, there's a lot of elements that go into the situation play of those scenarios.
You think they intentionally put that ball in play?
I think for them, based on our timeout situation, the ball in play there with no timeouts is a good plan, as long as you feel like you can execute it. Because again, you're taking time. And in those situations, time is the most important thing. It's more important than field position. And if we're not able to field, if they get a great bounce, it ends up even be a better kick. Because if we're not able to handle it and it gets in the end zone, the ball's on the 20. Conversely, if it takes a bad bounce for them, that thing may go out of bounds. And now you got the ball in the 40. So but those are parts of the situations and what are you trying to do? And then, like anything, the execution of the play is a whole nother level.
With the Malik return, that ball looked like it was probably going to go out of bounds. What do you tell Malik when it's that close?
You have to play it. You have to field it. As long as you are not in an awkward position of fielding it, if you're able to, you got to play that.
And I'll just another question. I know I'm feeling personal right now.
I'm not happy about this.
Unbelievable.
With the kicker, in that situation, what do you advise a kicker to do? Like, he obviously didn't go for the fake. Yeah. You want the kicker to, just want the kicker to stand his ground, or
get him on the ground. So whatever, again, you got to get him on the ground. When that thing pops as a kicker, your job is to get him on the ground. But again, you're talking about a situation where you have kickers aren't spending a lot of time working on open field tackle. It's something you work a little bit here in the offseason and in training camp, but it's not something you drill time and time again. So that player in that situation is not something he sees it. So it's the human element that makes the NFL so great. You don't know what humans are going to do.
Danny, one more about Malik, or maybe there'll be more after that. one more for me. His college resume had 14 kickoff returns, no punt return. Mm-hmm. What was it about? Maybe you saw something on film or early on when you had him here that you guys have believed that could be a return?
Well, again, it just based on what your role is going to be and finding a niche to be able to make the club. When you're a later round draft pick and the team you get drafted to has 2 elite receivers, if you want to make the team and get on the field, what else can you do? And whether that is, not only am I a good receiver, but I'm a good blocker. Maybe I'm a good special teams player. Maybe I'm a returner. So the old adage, to stick around the National Football League, the more that you can do to enhance your resume and what I can do on game day, you have to do. So there's a guy who had, again, limited experience, but very early on, like, hey, this is going to be part of what you need to try to excel at.
Just off you mentioning kickers and punters, drilling a little bit of tackling. How good are Jason and Jake in that regard? If that situation ever arose?
Yeah, that's I can't answer that.
I think you
I
just
wouldn't.
did.
I wouldn't obviously ask you what you would tell Chris Greer or Mike, but I am curious when the Dolphins are deciding who to designate to return. Case like Patrick McMorris, would they ask your feedback on whether you see him as a potential core special teams player, and does he have the qualities that make you think he could be?
Well, yeah, those conversations are constantly ongoing about the roster. That's everybody's input is part of it. If this happens, what is the role? What is the contingency? And it's constant. It's ongoing. It happens because of injuries. It happens because of activations, deactivations. It happens for a myriad of reasons. But those conversations are important because it's the lifeblood. You only have X amount of players, and you need players that have uniform on game day. They need to be playing. So that's the key to this league is getting production from everybody that's got a uniform on game day. That makes it why it's the greatest team sport in the world.
So Ryan, do you talk to Bobby this week? What's that dynamic like?
Yeah, I texted with him. Like normally, I obviously do talk to him, but this week texted with him Monday. That's about it. Probably give him a call tomorrow, see if he wants to do us a favor, send that game plan on over, give us a little bit of a head start and get rolling. No, that's obviously a joke, but yeah, I texted with him Monday, but yeah, looking forward to it.
How much do you guys usually talk or text?
Every week. We'll talk on the phone usually once a week, and then we text pretty frequently throughout the week. Obviously, a lot of it, just about family and that sort of thing, and see how my niece and nephews are doing and all that. But obviously, there is the football element of it too. So it's going to be fun.
Do you share game plans or?
Yeah.
I'm talking about for like when you have common opponents and things you.
Right. That's a good. You know what? Honestly, this year we haven't really. I don't know. I think we've both been so far wrapped up in our own stuff that we haven't really done that. Especially like since we work on opposite sides of the ball, it's not as pertinent that if we were both defensive coaches needing like to cross-check stuff. Also, I think both of us know in the back of our heads we're in the same conference, so you never know. Like you never know what's going to happen here. So we have not.
What do you think of how his career has taken off as well? Just his name is one that's hot sometimes for maybe head coaching candidacy next year.
Yeah, I think it's cool to see. I mean, he's very deserving. He's very smart. He's very in tune to what's going on. He's got a gift for getting the best out of his guys, putting his guys in position to make plays. He's got a good grasp of the game. He obviously he played receiver in college, so he was an offensive guy, but then he went over to the defensive side of the ball to start with. And I think when Kyle and Mike do that with those guys, it really helps their just football acumen and their ability to just understand the whole game. And that really helped Bobby. You can tell in everybody, a lot of the guys that come up in this tree, just when you look at their concepts, pass game, run game, like they understand coverage structures, they understand how to attack things. So anytime you play, not just Houston, not just Bobby, but anybody in that tree, you got to be ready because they have an understanding of defense. So they're going to test your rules. You got to be ready to rock.
Ryan, so he got the win when you guys met up in Frisco in 2022. Did he hold that over your head for a little while?
No, he didn't. But we beat him in the preseason, and we had some T-shirts going around that sent to my niece and nephew, signed versions. But no, he did not. He's good about that sort of thing. So no, he did not. But this is, I want to say, probably the if you include preseason, this got to be the 5th time I think we've played against each other and stuff. So it makes for interesting family dynamic every time, especially like after the game when you're with your whole family and everything. But it's fun. You love it. That's part of the reason why you're excited when you get into it and you have siblings in it, because it does. We're all competitors. We all like to see each other grow, but at the same time, like, you're independent of that. You're trying to help your team do the best they can to put their product on the field. So it's fun.
There's some Tecmo Bowl or Madden games back in the yesteryear between you guys.
Yeah, we definitely played Madden a lot. I have another brother that is a scout for the 49ers, so I get to double up here a little bit. But him and Bobby, Steve and Bobby are pretty close in age. They're like 16, 18 months apart, I think. So they definitely had some heated Madden matches that I had to referee as the older sibling. Might have had some busted controllers and that sort of thing, but it's all good memories, man.
Ryan, a question about your guys. Last week, Kendall Fuller is there, and they're, Kendall and Cater and Jalen Ramsey are together. The Jets have 200-yard receivers. What do you make of that? Just football, or what do you make of that?
Yeah. Are you saying like just the result of the game?
Yeah, or
the statistical?
You're intact, and they have 200-yard receivers. Yeah. Did your guys perform poorly? Did they perform very well with a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Right. I think game like that, they obviously have some talented guys. That's no question about that. We do too. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best of all time. I think there's certain plays within that game that technically and that guys would like to continue to, I don't want to say get back, but they know there's some technical stuff to work on. There's also a variety of plays inside that game where those guys did their job and had some good technique reps and all that. So sometimes that does, I don't want to say it happens, but that's 65 play game on average. So there's when you're facing somebody from that position, there's going to be plays where, especially those guys that are that talented, they might get the best of you, you might get the best of them, but you keep working your technique, you keep honing your craft, and you take those coaching points and you apply them to the next week so that you can continue to be improving every week.
With Jordan Poyer, it seemed like he was targeted early on, gave up some catches. Do you think he's played better in recent weeks, Ryan?
Yeah, Jordan's played solid for us. He's like I've said this before. I'm very glad that we have Jordan on our team, and in the secondary, he, like I said before, he provides that calming presence. He understands how to get us lined up. There's not a play he really hasn't experienced. He's been playing well, obviously. As with all these guys, we can think of a few plays, a handful of plays that he'd like to get back or that we're coaching him on, and he knows like to put himself in situation for those each individual plays to maybe have a different outcome. But I'm very happy that we have Jordan, and I think he's played solid for us.
And no interceptions this year from Jordan or Javon, which I know is obviously part of their function, how often they're targeted. Javon dropped the one last week. Is that something that troubles the coaching staff? Is it something which needs to be improved on in terms of turnover creation from those guys? And Javon's done it before. Poyer's done it before.
Yeah, it's not something that troubles us at all. We focus on getting these guys like football. Obviously, it's not Jordan Poyer versus the Jets. It's not Javon Holland versus the Texans. That's a beautiful thing about football, let alone defensive football, is there's 10 other guys that are out there with you every single play, battling the same way you are. So I don't want to say we're like disappointed in that or anything. We want these guys to do their technique and their assignment. That's the number one goal. If they start worrying about other things that are outside the structure of their assignment, that's where as a defense you don't function as clean. So those opportunities, we just got to capitalize on them when they come, and hopefully they do get more shots at it and are able to maximize it.
We spent a lot of time in our media room discussing what to do on 3rd and 4th and short. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of fans think, and several of us in this room think, that Jeff Wilson would be a good option because of his size, because of his toughness in those spots. We asked Frank about that. Frank said Devon's had some success between the tackles and short yardage before. Where do you stand on this issue? Is Jeff, do you think, a potential solution with the continued uneven performance on 3rd and 4th and short?
Well, I think any of the backs have to be a potential option. I mean, we can't always control who's in there, who's healthy, and things of that nature. So when you dump, or not dump it, when you put it all on one player, that you kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. So I think all of them have to be able to do that. I think they've all demonstrated that they can be physical. Certainly Raheem has had a number of physical runs since he's been here. You look at the run that Devon scored on last week behind Malik leading up on a safety. He punched that ball in there and had a little surge on the goal line. So I don't question the toughness of any of the guys as they attack the line of scrimmage. I think it comes down to the same things in football all the time. We've got to make great decisions with the ball when we have it, put the ball in the right spots, and we need, the blocking and things to be executed at a high level for us to be successful. And that's any play. That's not 3rd and 1. That's any play that we have.
What do you give justification for the reason you guys have averaged less than 3 yards carried the last 5 weeks?
A justification for it? An explanation? I think the explanation is that we're all involved in it. We've got to get better. I mean, it's not the back with just the ball. It's the people in front of him. It's the force blocks on the edges. It's all the little. We're all involved in this in every play. I mean, it's not. That's the beautiful thing about this game. This game isn't one person. You can't clear out the whole side and put one player over here and say, go ahead and beat 11 guys on the field. This game doesn't work like that. You need everybody on the field to execute at a high level, and that's the teams that do more of that are better. And we haven't done it well enough. We're continually working on, continually talking about it. We're trying to set up schemes that we feel are best for our players, as well as what we think is going to be efficient and successful in the run game, as well as the pass game.
Go from running so well a lot of the time that Tua was out to then now Tua is kind of lighting it up, but then not running as effectively in recent weeks.
I think it goes back to execution. I know that's not the answer that anybody wants, but that's really what the answer is. What play there's not a play we have in our playbook that's not designed to be successful. It doesn't have answers versus a certain coverage or versus a certain front if we execute that play. I mean, very few plays do we put in the playbook and say, ooh, they jump in this front, we got no play. I mean, then we don't want that play in because there is a chance that you could get that. So it's execution. It's execution on everything, and it's everybody. It's not one person. It's not one position. It's and we've taken turns on things, and we have to lock in those opportunities, pass and run to get better.
What has been your message to the running back room as you guys have kind of gone on this stretch of not being able to run the ball as effectively? Message like, I'm sure they're not as happy, right? So what do you do to kind of keep them, locked in and, ready for the next game? Or is there not a message? Is it just still the game plan?
My answer to you would be, we're going to do whatever it takes to help contribute to a win. And if we're winning, we should be happy. Maybe not, individually, stats and things like that. The end result of this is we have a goal. We need to win games and to achieve our ultimate goal at the end of the season. And so if guys aren't happy because we're winning because their stats aren't right, then that's a different set of issues and conversations we need to have. But my room is not like that. This is fantastic young people who are committed to whatever we ask them to do. And if that's run it 55 times a game, they'll do that. They'll jump in with both feet and do that. And if that means we got to pass protect and catch the ball and do some other things, they're willing to do that. It's a very unselfish room from an inherently selfish position.
We know that Ingle had the calf injury. Now he's got the ankle. He's been slowed a little bit. What's been the effect of that on the run game? And are you making up for it with tight ends in his role, or how do you adjust?
Yeah, some of it's personnel changes that we've done, different groupings. But we always carry a multitude of personnel groups. I mean, we use the 2-back look with Alec in there. We use the tight ends, different variations of those two in there. We use the wide receivers and variations of people in there. So we don't ever, because in the middle of a game, if you're too top heavy in one personnel group, and I'd like to say they break a shoelace, if that makes sense. I don't like talking about the other word, but if they break a shoelace and we're down for a little bit, you can't just be out of everything. You have to have options. So we try to be diverse in what we carry into the game. Certainly Alec is an important part, bringing a physical presence to what we do in the run game, and we depend a tremendous amount on that. And he's healed up a little bit in the last few weeks, better than he was 3 weeks ago. So when we have him in there, we utilize him, and when he's not in there, is it different? It's different, but hopefully, again, we're executing no matter what that grouping is.
I want to ask you about Raheem. Obviously, this has been, you go from having a career year last year to beginning the year with injuries, then the hip injury, then inactive this week. What do you tell a guy like Raheem? I know he's mentally tough, but just in order to keep pushing.
Keep pushing. You just said it. I mean, what's the other option? There is no other option, right? I mean, at the end of the day, things are gonna work. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. There's adversity, and we talk about it all the time. But you go forward. The only other option is to not go forward, and we're not doing that. I mean, that's not how these guys are wired. They're just not. That's not what they do. So. We work with him, try to get him healthy when we can. When he's had bumps and bruises, take the time to get him where he needs to be. When he is healthy, we'll have him in there. We're using him, and it's that way with all of them. Alec is in the same boat. They do a tremendous job in the training room. Our training staff is fantastic getting these guys healthy to get them back on the field for Sunday. And when we have them, we're going to use them. And when we don't, then that's another opportunity for somebody else.
You in the past, you guys have forced him to sit out the first practice of the week last year. This year, he's been practicing on a regular basis. I'm pretty sure that has a lot to do with the fact that he's not taking a heavy dose of the workload. Is that their thought to maybe if he's rested more, he would give you more?
It's an interesting discussion in there. I think it's the perspective of it is more preparation. Right? What does he need to be able to be ready to perform? And that's more the discussion that we focus on rather than, hey, just rest him and then he can go and do whatever. Because there is adjustments that we have. There's things that we need to know what to do. And so going in and doing that in practice is an important part of the week of preparation for the game. So all those guys practice. Everybody doesn't get every play. And that's where the professionalism of the sport comes in, is that these guys have to be able to take a rep from somebody else who gets that rep and be able to execute in the game. A perfect example is Jeff Wilson last week on the third down run that he had from split backs. Jeff hadn't had that rep but one time in practice and time up with the quarterbacks. That's the only time he did that. But in the meetings and everything that he had heard, he watched, he knew what it was, the mechanics of it, and he executed that to give us a first down on that run. So that's what the expectation is, that you have to be able to learn from repetitions that you don't necessarily physically get.
We ask you a run game, short yardage run game, but Devon Achane catching the ball out of the backfield, how much have you enjoyed his strides in that area and how much this offense has highlighted that aspect for him?
Well, I think it's a credit to Devon. Devon spent a lot of time in the offseason working on, catching the ball and doing things, and has become, dependable in that way. Again, I hope that all the backs are perceived that way, because we need to be well-rounded in that room. You can't just be unique to be a runner. You have to be able to catch the ball. You have to be able to protect. You got to be able to make people miss. You got to be able to do all those things that go into playing a running back. And Devon's done a great job in the pass game, as the other guys have worked on it. We work on it in the off season, and we're trying to expand that. But I think it's just a credit to his work ethic and what he's doing this year.
And how he's handled, if I could just follow up, how he's handled that workload, catching so many touches between catches and rushing attempts.
I think good. At this point in time, we haven't broke a shoelace yet, so yeah.